My name is Edvard and I'm the CEO of Bioextrax. We do something slightly different than most companies that are involved with the BioStock. We do industrial biotechnology. And industrial biotechnology means that you use microbes in different processes to produce different kinds of materials. And in our case, we use bacteria for selective hydrolysis of protein-rich materials. So that means that we use bacteria to break down materials in a selective manner. And when you do that, that means that you can upcycle that material. But what I want to do here today is, first of all, to present which kind of materials we can produce with our technology. We can produce a pretty wide range of different materials. We can produce a bio-based and biodegradable plastic called PHA, or polyhydroxyalkanoates. We can produce fibers. We can produce feed ingredients or protein-rich feed ingredients, and we have a number of patents applications in different regions of the world. The business model that we're pursuing is to license our technologies to different material producers. We're not planning to own or operate any facilities ourselves. And the reason why somebody would want to license from us is that we combine cost effectiveness with environmental friendliness. And it's this combination that is the basis for our business model and business idea. And since we were spun off from the Department of Biotechnology at Lund University approximately 6 years ago, we have gradually transformed from an R&D base to a commercially based or commercially focused company. And it is to accelerate this transition that we're now doing an IPO to bring in 5 million Swedish krona. But I would like to spend some more time on what we do as a company. And as I indicated, we can produce a number of different materials. We have a number of different business areas, but they're based on the same underlying concept. So we call it a platform technology. And one of the things that we can do is that we can take any kind of organic material. So this is any material with a lot of carbon in it. This could be molasses from the sugar industry. It can be crude glycerol, which is a byproduct from biodiesel production. It can be municipal organic waste. It can be food processing wastewater and a number of other kinds of materials. And through one single process, we call it the PHA process, we produce two different materials. It's bioplastic, PHA, and a co-product from that, which is a hydrolyzed protein, which can be used as feed. Another raw material that we work with is feathers. These are feathers from chicken or turkey. And we can turn them into microfibers, keratin-rich microfibers, and also into feed. And then there are a number of other applications, such as extracting oils from algae or hydrolyzing insects and turn them into a highly digestible feed that we've done in the lab, but we haven't started the commercialization of yet. So it is these applications that we're currently focusing on: the valorization of feathers, the two different processes from that, and the production of PHAs. And I'm going to start with PHA. And PHAs are interesting for two reasons. First of all, they are bio-based and biodegradable. So from an environmental perspective, they are excellent. They also have characteristics which make them suitable replacements for up to 70% of all fossil-based plastics. And this combination, of course, is very interesting, both from a sustainability and a commercial perspective. And this is how PHAs are produced. You start with any kind of organic material, as mentioned, and here I've used molasses, which is a co-product from the sugar industry. And based on this carbon source, you grow bacteria. And after a certain amount of time, you cut the access to nitrogen. And then the bacteria can't grow anymore. And what they instead start to do is that they start accumulating the carbon in the surroundings in the form of polymers intercellularly. This is not conceptually, at least not very unsimilar to how we humans store fat as an energy reserve for the future. So what you have after this step is bacteria filled with plastics. And we are not only one who can do this process, there are a number of other companies who can do it as well, but where they struggle is how to get the plastics out of the bacteria, because of course you need to do that in order to use it for something useful. And what they do is they do a combination of solvents or chemicals, heat and pressure to disrupt the cell walls and to release the PHA. What we instead do is that we add another bacteria. We can call it the Bioextrax bacteria. And what the Bioextrax bacteria does is that when it comes into contact with the PHA producing bacteria, it releases a cocktail of enzymes that breaks down the cell walls of the PHA producing bacteria. And out of this we get two products. We get the PHA, the bioplastic, which is released, and we get the co-product in the form of a hydrolyzed single-cell protein. This is the broken down cell walls of the PHA producing bacteria. And it's important because only around, or never more than 90%, but often between 50 and 70% of the total output from the process is PHA, which means that the rest is the co-product, and you want to use it for something useful. And as it's made up of 50 to 60% of protein, which means that it's good for feed, you don't want to ruin it by using chemicals in the extraction. So our competitive advantage compared to other methods for producing PHA is mainly the cost, and this is mainly thanks to the co-product that we produce, but we also have lower amounts of energy, or we use lower amounts of energy and no chemicals. So it's cheaper from that perspective. It's also more environmentally friendly, again, because we use very little energy and no chemicals. And then we also produce PHA granules or plastics with a higher molecular weight. And that's important for certain applications. You open up new application areas, and it also makes the processing of the polymers easier. But what does the market for PHA look like? Well, currently it's still fairly small. Last year, around 550 million Swedish krona worth of PHA was sold in the world, according to Markets and Markets. But it's not PHA or the PHA market as it is, but the potential in the PHA market that is interesting, because it's generally considered the bioplastic with the highest commercial potential, amongst others by the European Bioplastic Association, and there are leading industry experts that mean that if we can cut the cost for producing PHA, we can increase the market by 40 times within a few years. And this market demand is primarily driven by new legislation. One such example is the EU's upcoming ban against added microplastics in a long range of products. And what's interesting from our perspective with that legislation is that it explicitly exempts PHA from the ban. And we saw a very strong reaction from a large number of large companies when this proposal was published, and we were contacted by companies looking for a solution. And this is why this graph produced by the Nova Institute in Germany is interesting. This is the total amount of plastic produced in the world every year during the last 70 years. We're producing around 350 million tons. And that equals a market of several thousand billions Swedish krona. That's a very large number. And we do, of course, understand that we can't replace all this plastic with PHA over the coming few years. But when we can get the production cost of PHAs down to a level that is similar to that of fossil-based plastics, which we believe that we can do, then something really big will happen very quickly. And this potential within PHA is something that we see in our everyday work at Bioextrax. We're working with companies along the value chain. We're working with companies who have the organic materials that we use for the production of PHA, but we also work with buyers of both products we get out of the process. So when it comes to the owners of the organic materials, we're currently doing pre-studies with 4 different companies, these carbon sources as we call them, and we're generally working with pretty big companies. The smallest we work with here has a yearly revenue of 15 billion Swedish krona. And we're also doing tests with 3 PHA producers, current PHA producers, who are evaluating the possibility to use our methods instead of their current methods. When it comes to buyers of PHAs, we're also working with large companies. We're doing or planning trials together with companies who each are amongst the 3 biggest in the world in their respective market. And those markets are packaging, cosmetics, chemicals, FMCG, which is fast-moving consumer goods, and fashion as well. And then we're doing analysis of the co-product together with 1 European and 1 American feed producer. And on the patent side, we have received a notice of allowance for our patent in the US, and we expect a similar result within the EU soon. And that's everything I had to say about bioplastics. Now we move over to feathers. And that might seem like a small niche to work within, but we need to remember that every year 5 million tons of feathers are produced across the globe, and this is mostly being thrown away. It's considered a problem by the slaughterhouses. They pay to get rid of it. Instead, we can turn it into 2 useful products, and that is feed and microfibers. The microfibers are interesting because they're extremely small. They are between 30 and 200 micrometers long, and micrometer, that's a millionth meter, and they're between 2 and 6 micrometers wide. And the small size means that it's easy to mix these fibers into various materials such as polymers or plastics, for instance. They're also hollow, and the hollowness means that they have low density. So if you mix the fibers with, again, a polymer, you will significantly reduce the density of that material. And then they're also very strong. I don't know if you try to break a turkey feather, but that's pretty tough. They are flexible and strong. And those properties they take with them into the polymer you mix them with. So we're trying them in different applications, such as plastic reinforcements, in textiles, and as insulation. When it comes to the feed ingredient we can produce from feathers, it's pretty simple. Feathers are made up of 90% protein. We break this protein down to their amino acids, which means that we can feed them easily to animals because the digestibility becomes very high. And when it comes to the commercialization of feathers, we come pretty far. When it comes to the feed application, we have entered into an exclusive term sheet with one of Europe's largest waste management companies. They have more than 75,000 employees, and a full agreement based on this term sheet is being prepared. And what it means, to keep it very brief, is that they will do the production and we will get part of the profit. And when it comes to the microfibers, we haven't come that far yet. That's partly because it's a pretty new technology, but it's also because this is completely new and unique material. There are no real benchmarks anywhere in the world, and that means that we really need to start from scratch and try different applications. One of these trials we're currently doing that I want to highlight is that we're working with one of the world's largest furniture manufacturer, and they have agreed to pay for trials, and what they are interested in is this density lowering capacity of the fibers. So what will happen in the future is, first of all, that we will finalize the installation of the pilot facility that we're building in Lund. This pilot facility will allow us to produce larger samples for our customers to try, and through this we will be able to accelerate those collaborations into full commercialization agreements. And during next year, we hope that the facility to produce feed from feathers will be under construction, and we also want to enter into commercial agreements within both PHA, the bioplastic application, and within fibers. And in order to do this, we're bringing in money. We're doing an IPO to bring in 5 million Swedish kronor. We have commitments, so teckningsåtagande in Swedish, equal to 50% of the rights issue, and people who are either employed or on the board of the company will do or will represent around 50% of that commitment. And for every 2 share you subscribe for in the IPO, you get 1 share option. And the pre-money valuation that we're going to the market with is 24.5 million Swedish krona. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Edvard. Very interesting, an interesting field. I mean, talk about being in the center of development here. First of all, an IPO, 5 million Swedish kronor sounds like a small sum. Then again, we're used to looking at companies developing drugs, which is very expensive. So where will this money take you?
We're taking in 5 million in as part of the IPO, and then if the options are used, we hope that we'll get another 3 million, and that will be within approximately a year. And this will last us through this year and next, so until the end of 2021. And after that, we plan to be cash flow positive. And the reason why we have this very low burn rate is that we're pursuing a licensing model. So we're not constructing any facilities of our own. We don't need to apply for any permissions by ourselves and so on. So we work very closely with very large companies, and they make the investments for us, so to speak. So it's personal cost or employee cost. That's the main cost we have.
And looking at the different areas that you are active within, all of them seem to have huge potential, of course. In which area would you say that you have found the biggest commercial interest from external players?
Within PHA, definitely this bioplastic application, that's where we're working with the largest number of potential customers, and that's also where we kind of receive the most attention. And that's very much in the it's upcoming area, or very trendy area, if you so will. That being said, feathers are a really big problem for the industry. They don't really know what to do with it. Both the slaughterhouses and kind of the few companies that are currently trying to do something with feathers, so we kind of, from that perspective, we do address a very, very specific, although pretty small, pain in the market when it comes to feathers. So, and we are closer to the market when it comes to the feather technology, which I hope was obvious from the presentation.
Just out of curiosity, what happens with all the feathers today? Is it landfill or?
Landfill is a very common usage or usage. Some is being burned, but the melting temperature of feathers is so high that the energy recovery you get becomes very low.
Okay. And then you mentioned the big commercial interest in PHA, and looking at the production of plastics, 350 million tons, you said, annually. Is that correct? And what's the prognosis for the transition into PHA, if you can say that?
It is very cost dependent. So that is the important thing here. So currently PHAs are around twice as expensive as what we will call the average fossil-based plastic. So this is what we are targeting and addressing. With the current price levels of PHAs, we're talking a growth rate of around 11%. That's not my prediction, that's the general prediction. And that's driven by legislation. But the really big things will happen when the cost comes down.
And I should also say, questions, audience, we have one. You go.
Just to sort out a confusion with me, these bioplastics PHA, they are produced from organic material. But if they are then converted into plastics, it's still the same old plastics as if they were made from petroleum. I mean, they are not as plastics. They are not more or less biodegradable.
Thank you that's a good thing to sort out. So they are highly biodegradable. So if you throw a bag made out of PHA in the ocean, for instance, it will dissolve within 6 months without leaving any microplastics or chemicals in the ocean.
But there's a lot of plastics that you really want to be static, if I may put. I mean, if I make a chair out of plastics, I don't want it to crumble within 5 years.
No, that's of course true, and I mean, first of all, you can't replace all plastics with PHA. That's, there are applications where you want it to last forever and ever. That's number one. But second, if you make a chair out of PHA, for instance, it won't start to degrade in your living room. That's not how you need bacteria, for instance, quite a lot of bacteria, and more bacteria than what you have in your living room. Same thing if you want to produce a bottle, for instance. So if you want a soda bottle, you can make it out of PHA. If you let it stand for a very, very long time in a moist and dirty environment, it will start to biodegrade, but it takes a long time. But the main application, you're right, is where you want the biodegradability. So within agriculture, for instance, or within medicine as well, because it's biocompatible, so it can degrade in your body without causing any harm.
You said you were spun out from the university in Lund. What are the future vision for Bioextrax? It's going to be another one of those innovative small companies that get picked up by some giant in the US, or are you going to try to stay locally?
I don't. I think, you can always discuss whether or not a company is a good acquisition target or not. I think our company as a whole is not, because we do a lot of different things. So there's not one single industrial player who would look at us and say, yeah, they fit perfectly in what we do, because then they will get other technologies that they kind of not, that they are not interested. But I think that the patents could probably be bought. But that's not what we're aiming for. We want to grow ourselves. That's the plan for the time being, at least.
Good ambition. Final question before we have to stop. The IPO, what's the timeline there?
Yeah, we plan to do it soon, so hopefully the subscription period will start by the end of February at some point, and then last for around 2 weeks after that, and then first trading day, second half of March, and it's at Spotlight Stock Market where we'll go.
So anyone interested should come and find you in the break.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you very much, Edvard.
Thank you.